All right, we're going to call to order the City Council meeting for Monday, March 7th, 2022. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Going to roll call. Jamie.
Jeff Dahlke.
Here.
Tracy Coach. Here. Bill LeClaire.
Here.
Bonnie Shimulinas.
Here.
Larry Thomas.
Here.
Adam Husky.
Here.
And then Mark Bittner and Darla LeClaire are excused, and Jay Bremiker is absent.
All right, thank you. Moving on to number 4, consideration of any council member request to participate in this meeting from a remote location. We do not have anyone that can join us remotely. I believe both of them are feeling sick or getting root canals or something that's not going to allow them to join us via telephone. Moving on to number 5 then, which is a public hearing. Under A, it's a public hearing regarding an ordinance to amend sections 10-1-20 and 10-1-21 entitled R1 Single Family and R2 Single and Double Family Resident Districts to include conservation subdivision as a conditional use, unintentionally deleted during the 2022 code clarification process. Greg, do you have any background on this before we open it up?
No, other than it was a whoops during the recodification process, and because it's an amendment to the zoning code, a public hearing is required by statute. That's why the hearing tonight.
Okay, we will have 3 calls for that public hearing. If you're wishing to address the council on the public hearing, please step up to the podium. My right, your left. State your name and address for the record. Opening up the first call. See none, we'll close the first call, open up the second call. No one on the second call, we'll close that one and open the third and final call. Closing the third call, the recommended action here is a motion to waive reading and adopt the ordinance. I'm looking for a motion on this.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tracy. Any discussion? All right, see none. This is a roll call vote. Jamie.
Jeff Dahlke.
Yes.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill LeClaire.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinas.
Aye.
Larry Thomas.
Aye.
Adam Husky.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we have one more public hearing under B. This is a public hearing for a conditional use permit for a drive-through service window at the Two Rivers Senior Center, 1520 17th Street. Background on this one, Greg?
Again, this is a project, as council is aware, that is being funded through CDBG COVID monies. For background, 100% federal funding. City zoning code requires any drive-through facilities, whether it's fast food, the library, which you may recall a hearing on last year, or the new senior center drive-through to be the subject of a conditional use permit. This is the hearing on that permit, which is recommended for approval by the Plan Commission.
All right, same drill here. If you're looking to address the council on this, we will open up the public hearing. Again, please step up to the podium. My right, your left. State your name and address for the record. Opening up the first call. See none, we'll close the first call and go to the second call. Closing the second call and opening up the third and final call. All right, seeing none, this is again a recommended action to motion to approve the conditional use permit. Looking for a motion. Thank you, Larry. Second by Bill. Any council discussion? Seeing none, this is also a roll call vote. Jamie.
Jeff Dahlke.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill LeClaire.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinas.
Aye.
Larry Thomas.
Aye.
Adam Husky.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, and on a side note, we had a public hearing on the planned unit development zoning for 3000 Forest Avenue, originally scheduled for this date and time, has been rescheduled to 6 o'clock on Monday, March 21st, 2022, due to the mispublication by our newspaper. So I know that our newspaper has to be notified, what is it, 2 weeks, a week?
I think that's 2 insertions, Jack.
Okay,
Yep.
2 insertions it is.
And every so often they trip up on that, and this is one of those times. So next agenda will include both action on the planned unit development zoning and development plan, as well as the TIF development agreement for that project.
Okay, thank you. So expect that on our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from now. Moving on to number 6, input from public. Again, please state your name and address for the record. Step up to the podium, my right, your left. Anything you want to talk about that's on this agenda or anything you'd like to see on a future agenda. If you'd like to address the council, you can do so now. All right, see none, we will move on to number 7, which is council communications. Any letters or other communications from citizens that council members have received and would like to share, please do so now. Anyone? Jeff?
I had several people call me after the ice storm, wondering why their streets weren't getting salted. They said, we're paying the same taxes as everybody else on bus routes. We should get salt on our streets too. I mean, they had a valid point, but I understand where the city's coming from also.
Okay, I can't speak for Public Works, but I thought they used sand and salt mixture even on side roads, but maybe Jim could better address
Maybe
it, or
Jim
Greg.
could speak it. I mean, honestly, we do hear from people, and I see the Facebook posts after every storm. How come I don't get the same treatment as salt roads? I dare say most of us, by the time you get where you're going, like the grocery store, the gas station, church, school, we all use the salt routes, which is why they get first priority. Jim? You know,
in a nutshell, that's it. If we have some inclement weather that makes things slippery, we do address these salt routes, we call them. We do have a map if anybody's interested in looking at, there's 2 of them, red and blue. We can show you that, but basically they include the highways, the major thoroughfares, and the bus routes, for example, are all covered with that. Anything beyond that is sort of a as needed basis. We do intersections with sand and salt at times. And of late, we're trying to also minimize the use of salt. We're having some environmental impacts that we're trying to delay.
That particular storm, we ended up getting some snow on top of the ice that kind of dulled things. And then the crews did go through and plow. But yeah, we will always do the salt routes first for good, valid reasons. In the case of an extreme weather event where it's incredibly slippery, then we may sand and salt the side streets.
Or at least the intersections. And again, it's a function of what the weatherman says too, as far as what temperatures are coming in the very immediate future.
It's like today, not the same circumstance, but it's always a judgment call. The crews went out at noon at about the end of the snow. Probably got a little more snow than any of us had banked on.
Do a lot of guessing. Sometimes it's wrong.
Yep.
It's a very valid question, but yeah, that makes sense. Anything else, Jeff?
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay, anybody else? I see. No. All right, I had one, and it was a question on the snow ordinance on depositing snow in neighbor's yard. Might be a little strict. I did forward that off. It was a situation. I did forward that off to Chief Kohlmeyer, and we will address that as needed. And if it needs to come back before council, we will certainly do so. Greg will obviously be in touch on that as well. So it'll be copied that way.
If someone has an issue with a neighbor putting snow in whatever quantity in their yard, that I think can be a civil issue. But the council just a few years ago also put it in the ordinance.
For the right reasons, correct.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we're going to move on from there to number 8, which is council reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Does anyone have anything they'd like to report on from their boards, committees, or commissions that they represent? I'll take over for Mark because he likes to tell everyone about personnel and finance. So we do have Baird here tonight, who will speak on pretty much the majority of our meeting the other night, as well as 2 action items. That'll be before council that were also part of our meeting. That was pretty much our whole meeting was Baird and the 2 action items tonight. So anyone else have anything else that they'd like to report from their boards? Okay, be quiet. Then on to number 8, we got a pretty full city manager's report. Greg.
Okay, first up, I would like to invite Chief Kohlmeyer forward for the introduction and swearing in of our newest police lieutenant, Nick Spurney. Chief.
Thank you. So you might recognize Nick Spurney. Nick, come on in here. There he is. All right. So Nick has been with the police department for 4 years. He's done a lot in that 4 years. As I said, you might recognize him. He wasn't here that long ago, and he had sergeant stripes on his shoulder. And he's one of the examples of why we started that sergeant's program not that long ago, is we wanted to try and mentor people up, give them a taste of leadership, being a shift commander for the police department. And then hopefully when we have a lieutenant opening, we can advance somebody from within the ranks to do that. And that's exactly what's happened here with Nick. So Nick, again, has done a lot in his 4 years. He's a member of the Manitowoc County SWAT team. Like I said, he was promoted to sergeant. And now tonight we're making it official as Lieutenant Nicholas Spurney. So with that, Jamie, if you would please do the swearing. And I'll try and stand out of the way.
I, Nick Spurney, Office of Police for the City of Toronto, entered of. I will support the Constitution office best of my ability.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, second shift as well. Be safe out there. We also have some new hires to introduce tonight. And I will let, first of all, our outgoing department head, that's his personality as well as where he's headed to retirement in June. Our outgoing department head, Ross Blaha, introduce our new water utility director, Andrew Sukawati. Russ has had a lot of accomplishments at the water utility, and I think recruitment and securing Andrew as a new department head is high on Ross's list.
Good thing.
Yeah.
So this will be Andrew Sukawati. He's he got his bachelor's degree in leadership. He's had 12 years at Manitowoc Public Utilities. He started as a meter reader, moved up to an operator, moved up to a foreman, and then took over the superintendent role. And I think he's probably the best candidate that I could think of anywhere that we could get, because he has a history of everything that we do. He's going to be a huge benefit to the city. He's going to make our city strong, make our utility rates, things like that, keep in check, because that's the road we're headed down. We want to also make sure that he's trained up. That's why we started him early, so that when I retire on June 16th, we got enough time together so we can make the transition smooth and also economical for everyone. That's why we're doing all this, is for the training and what goes into how to make the job efficient and what to do and why to do it. Andrew was also my replacement at MPU when I left 8 years ago. So I think he's following me. I don't know that for sure, but there seems to be something here. So I'd like to introduce you to Andrew Sukawati.
Very happy to have Andrew on board. He has been a self-starter throughout his career, as Ross noted. When he was a meter reader at MPU, he was working on his own to get his operator certification. When he was an operator, he was pursuing education that would help him in a supervisory role. And just recently, as Ross mentioned, completed his bachelor's degree in management with a minor in public administration at UW Green Bay. So we've got an outstanding new person in place there to carry on, and likewise to fill a lot of positions on the crew, because we've got 3 retirements coming up within the next 12 months. Some of them are right upon us, in fact. So good opportunity for Andrew, good for the city. We also have a new city electrician, and I will invite our electric utility director for it, Brian, to handle those introductions.
Good evening. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that we have our new electrician on board, Mr. Tyler Dusing. He was hired last Monday. It was his first day. He's a 2014 graduate from Two Rivers High School. He's going to be the electrician and soon to be taking his test for his master's. April. And he comes to us with a strong background in commercial and industrial work. Previously had worked for Faith Technologies for 7 years, where he also got his took a 4-year apprenticeship program there. Most recently, he worked for the Two Rivers School District for 1.5 years as their electrician under their maintenance department. We feel Tyler's going to be a great addition to our team. He's already jumped right into his position today, working with the water department on an issue they had at the reservoir on the north end of town.
Tell us a little bit about that, Brian, that this weekend's weather didn't just black out the south side.
Weekend weather that, of course, you know, when lightning happens, you can't tell where it's going to strike or what's going to happen. I had our crews come in. They were called in by our answer services. The entire south side was out, as well as the industrial circuit. The crews ran the lines, looked for any issues along the way, because it could be a broken pole, it could have been, you know, downed wires. They found nothing that was an obvious sign that there was a problem. Went back to the substation, put the feeder back online, and everything was good. So very happy with that. Unfortunately, there were other issues with the water department. They had some issues with some equipment. Tyler jumped right in and helped them out today. So I got high praises from that for him today. So with that, welcome Tyler Dusing.
Tyler, welcome. Off to a great start. Next up, I wanted to, along with members of the Central Park West 365 Planning Committee, provide an update to the council on fundraising for that project. And we have some special guests that will be addressing us as well this evening. First off, as I name your names, I'd like to ask members of both the Design Committee and the Fundraising Committee to stand. Not everybody's here, but we've got a pretty good turnout. You can also stand if you're leaving. Scott, we just volunteered you for a committee. That's our Public Works foreman, Scott Dusing. He's the proud dad of our new electrician, by the way. Wouldn't let him get out of here without saying that. Wendy Brandt has chaired the Design Committee and also serves on the Fundraising Committee. Tracy Coach on City Council is a member of the Design Committee, as is Nate Kronforce. Nate is not here tonight. Teresa Lieberg of the Design Committee. Kathy Peterson, Design Committee, and she also chairs the Fundraising Committee. Jay Remacher, not here tonight from council, but Jay has served on the Design Committee since its inception last year in February. Scott Steckmesser, Scott, citizen member of the committee as well, and Jane Rulsey. That is the Design Committee for Central Park West. The Fundraising Committee, there is some overlap. Kathy Peterson is the chair of that group. Brad Bosar, Brad is not here tonight, but owner of our local Napa Auto Parts and Main Street board member, is on the committee. Wendy Brandt does double duty, also on this committee. Gina Cron from Sepia Chapel, Gina's not here tonight. Darla LeClaire, council member recovering at home after surgery. is on the fundraising committee. Our design consultant is Blake Tyson from Architecture and Planning of Madison. They've done a very capable job working with the committee and addressing design issues that we had and worked through, I think, pretty effectively with the committee and council. Support to the committee has been provided by the city manager's office, city clerk, Parks and Rec Department, Community Development Department, and Two Rivers Main Street. And all of those city departments are represented here tonight. We got good news. As of last Friday, we reached a little over the halfway point on the project fundraising goal of $800,000. This includes generous naming gifts for major park features, including the skating loop, the water feature, the Pavilion patio gathering space, and the bandstand. Pleased to announce publicly for the first time tonight that the ice skating ribbon, synthetic ice overlapping the south end of the park, is being sponsored by Two Rivers Rotary in conjunction with a private donor. Rotary through the years has supported so many worthwhile community projects, from the Mariners Trail overlook over 20 years ago when Mariners Trail was being built, to most recently the Rotary Pavilion at Neshota Beach. Lots of great projects supported by Rotary, and they'll be working over the next 2 to 3 years with their fundraising priority being the skating loop at the park. So kudos. And let's, we don't have a representative here tonight, but let's do a round of applause for Two Rivers Rotary. Also, I better get a plug in too, because Rotary does a lot of their fundraising through their annual dinner and auction. This year, after a COVID-related hiatus, the dinner and auction will be resuming April 2 over at Sepia Chapel. $100 a person, 57 of that is tax deductible, as it will benefit the project. And as you note there at the bottom, reservations can be made online at tworiversrotary.com or by contacting Colleen Inman, and we'll be sharing that. Certainly Rotary has supported a lot of great events through their annual fundraiser. Thank you to Rotary. Forum right companies. Forum right companies just last Friday made the commitment to sponsor the park water feature, which will include water jets, either user activated or on a timed cycle, that'll provide a cool respite for kids, whether you're 7 or 70 on warm summer days. And the spray jets will be illuminated at night, adding a visual feature to the night view of the park. Dave Waggy had been considering a donation. Dave thought he might be here tonight, but he's not. He had a donation from Forum Right under consideration. It was kind of funny. Last Friday, Blake from our design firm was here for a noon meeting with the fundraising committee. Mr. Waggy got off the elevator because he had a meeting with Roger Russo from Main Street about the Brian Lee Blues Festival next summer. Came in, struck up a conversation with the project designer. Dave was wondering what was still available for naming gifts, and has made the commitment based on that review to funding the park water feature. So again, round of applause, please, for Forum Right. The Pavilion patio gathering space is an area right behind the existing time capsule and monument, which is staying at the park. This is an area that people can either use casually, or we expect will be able to reserve in conjunction with the Pavilion building that will feature a rental room and kitchen, basic kitchen area. The naming gift for that, $50,000, and that commitment has been made by Bank First. Again, thank you, Bank First. We've also gotten numerous commitments and donations ranging from $100 donations to $250 brick pavers. Look for a lot more publicity on the Buy a Brick or Buy a Paver program. All 13 of the park benches arrayed in front of the new bandstand have been sold. I think 6 or 7 out of the 20 trees at $1,000 a piece are spoken for. So the community is responding very well on this. And I've got every confidence that by midsummer, when we hope to be able to move forward with bidding the project, we'll be there as far as our fundraising. Now, another major element of the park, of course, will be a new bandstand, which will be placed at the far north end of the park to make the best use of space, replace the existing bandstand, which is 45 years old. And I'm pleased to announce tonight that the city is also benefiting from a naming gift for the new bandstand. And at this point, I'd like to invite up to the microphone representatives of the Schmidt family of Two Rivers, the Schmidt boys, or at least some of the Schmidt boys and girls. And of course, I think most of you know our good friend, former mayor of Green Bay, Jim Schmidt. Jim Schmidt of Two Rivers, as we
Thank you, Greg.
call him. Thank you.
Council members and community members, my name is Jim Schmidt. Grew up here in the city of Two Rivers. Two of my brothers, Father Carl and my brother Bill, we're from a family of 11 of us, and we're the son of Jim Schmidt, who grew up on 17th Street, and he was the baby of 17. A lot of Schmidt in Two Rivers, and we're just delighted to with what the city's what Mayor Buckley's been doing the last 25 years. The city has got such a rich history, and we became aware that you're going to be redoing your park, Central Park, and as you know, our fathers came from a barbershop quartet. They sang thousands of shows on many stages throughout the United States, traveled over 2 million miles, and everywhere they went, they would talk about Two Rivers, and that was their hometown. Stepping Around was one of their big songs that had the name Two Rivers in it. And Bob Hope, and they did the Bob Hope tour, Lawrence Welk, Ed Sullivan, and some of the younger people. Those were big shows back then, and we sure enjoyed seeing them all those 35 years that they sang together. And when we became aware that the city of Two Rivers was going to be honoring their history, as they have in the museum and redoing Central Park, we came to see Greg and had a meeting with some of your members here who were just very receptive, very kind. Blake, the internal staff here, and we're just so pleased with the opportunity that you're presenting to our family. And so on behalf of the Schmidts, the cousins, there's 102 grandchildren out of that family on 17th Street. And so we're just delighted to pledge a $100,000 gift to the city of Two Rivers for the naming rights of what we want to call the Schmidt Brothers stage. We hope that that's programmed, that we support music, that we honor the history of the community. We're just delighted to have this opportunity, and grateful and look forward to this. And while $100,000 may sound like a lot of money when you have 102 cousins, you do the math. It's not too bad. We've had some Zoom meetings with our cousins. We were with Greg last week, and just the energy is very good. And we have some lead gifts that some of our cousins have pledged, and we just want here to thank you for this opportunity. And we very much look forward to the groundbreaking, to the dedication of the park, and being part of the rich history here in the city of Two Rivers. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much. On behalf of City Council and the City of Two Rivers, we truly do thank you, and we thank your family for being a part of this great project in our downtown. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I have a question. Are you going to sing the first night?
Be safe, gentlemen. I would encourage people to go out to the, I believe it's PT Schmidt. Go to the Facebook page for the Schmidt brothers, and there's a pretty extensive history dating back to, well, they were into barbershopping before they won the national championship in 1951. But in 1951, those four brothers from Two Rivers traveled to Toledo by train to compete in the, help me Dave Bush, Sub-Squad. Yeah. Did they change that name, or are they still? Now it's just the Barbershop Harmony Society. It's so much simpler. But one of our great barbershoppers from the Clipper City Chordsmen on staff, Dave Buss, their performance in Toledo in 1951 earned the Schmidt brothers first place in a field of 40 quartets. And that began a 35-year run. I plagiarized all this from the Facebook page, by the way, that would include traveling over 2 million miles for over 3,000 performances. Pretty good for 4 young men from Two Rivers. That's them with the trophy. There they are, when the winners, they were announced as winners of the competition. The history indicates that over 2,000 people were at the train station in Manitowoc to greet them. And then there was a motorcade with several hundred vehicles to Two Rivers, followed by a celebration at the community house. And that's their mom in the center there. You see they're in the convertible headed for TR. They proceeded to travel the world, including entertaining U.S. troops in Alaska. And as Mayor Jim mentioned, appearances on Ed Sullivan, Arthur Godfrey, Lawrence Welk, performing with Bob Hope. Pretty amazing story. This is the front view from the south of the Schmidt Brothers stage at the park. I think you'll recognize it looks essentially of the design type we've been looking at. On the south side, the name Schmidt Brothers Stage will appear at the top. And then on the north side toward 18th Street, there will be, and this is kind of conceptual at this point, but on the left panel, as you face the back of the stage, the name Schmidt Brothers Stage, perhaps with the emblem of their trophy that was won in 1951. That one's still a little up in the air, but then also a bronze historic marker telling the history of the quartet with their portrait in relief. The family has identified that they would like to make some additional individual contributions to the stage. So there will be the opportunity for some 16-inch by 16-inch pavers, which you sort of see there in the dark gray across the back of the stage. That's behind the patterned backdrop that's planned for the center of the stage. So this is largely consistent with what the committee has wanted to see there, and we are very pleased that Blake's design met with the approval of the family. So that is that. There is another fundraising activity that a subcommittee made up of Gina Cron and Darla LeClaire has been working on, and that's dinner and music over at Sepia Chapel on Thursday, April 21st, Rockin' for the Park. And tickets are $125. Proceeds benefit the Central Park West project. I should also mention under donations, I don't want to leave anybody out, but I don't intend to mention all donations tonight, but the Two Rivers Business Association has pledged $10,000 for the project. There have also been major commitments from local companies that include Collenberg Brothers, Crescent Woolen Mills, Pick and Save, Wisconsin Nationwide. I know I'm leaving some people out, and there have likewise been some very generous individual donations. So as of tonight, with donations in hand or pledges in hand, we're at about $410,000 out of the $800,000 total. That qualifies as one heck of a start.
Mhm.
And again, says something about Two Rivers. That does include, of course, Jim Toddy's bequest as well for the project. So with that.
How about a round of applause for all of our committee
For all of
members that have worked so hard on that? That's outstanding.
And you've seen it before, but we can see it again. This is the fly-through view of the park. Just a design note, the roof on that center pavilion won't be quite that red. There's the water feature. Folks that have been concerned about safety and kids running out into Washington Street, again, that retaining wall along the Washington Street side is necessary because of about a 4-foot grade differential from Washington down to West Park. It'll also pretty effectively screen off that area. That skinny guy that we go one-dimensional. Park pavilion with restrooms and a multi-purpose room that can be rented out. And what we can officially now call the Schmidt Brothers stage, the north end of the park. Lawn area is about 50% bigger than the area we have now for audiences for events.
Very nice. You're on 4.
Sorry about that. Justin, time for you to come forward at this point. As Adam mentioned earlier, the Personnel and Finance Committee met last week, and it included a presentation by Justin Fisher from Robert W. Baird, our financial advisors. This pertains to the city's borrowing for 2022 capital projects, $2.3 million in general obligation promissory notes for various capital projects. That's just about the sum total of our borrowing for the coming year. For this year, excuse me, there is one additional element, which if the development agreement goes forward next week in 2 weeks, next meeting, for 3000 Forest Avenue, that would be borrowing associated with the upfront TIF grant there, which would be in the form of a state trust fund loan for various reasons, which we discussed at the Finance and Personnel Committee. Justin has an overview that's been distributed to council members tonight, and after the conclusion of that, we'll be asking council to vote on a so-called parameters resolution, essentially authorizing Baird to place the debt, assuming an interest rate can be obtained within a certain parameter set by council. Justin, over to you.
Thanks, Greg. Great to see everyone. I'll keep this pretty brief as we went through this with finance the other day. But in front of you, you have a packet. I'll just run through that. On page 2 of that presentation packet, there's an interest rate graph on the left side of the page. That's really just to give you a highlight of what interest rates have done over the past year. I mean, you hear it in the news consistently every night about inflationary pressures, et cetera. We've seen interest rates rise over the last year, but on a historical basis, we're still at extremely low interest rates. So for the city to be looking to get into the market to lock in an interest rate for their capital borrowing, it's still a very good time to do so.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. Yeah. Council, for those that are scratching to look where you're at, it's page 8 in our packet for those of you that are looking. So should be page 8 in our packets as well.
Yeah, the resolution, but then there's the process.
In there. Thank you. Yeah. Right after the resolution.
Thank you. I apologize for not asking before I started. So I guess if you go to page 3 now of the presentation packet, there's a timeline in there. So P&F considered the plan of finance on March 2nd, where it was recommended to move forward with the plan. And tonight, as Greg alluded to, council will consider the plan of finance and adopt the parameters resolution. This is very consistent with what the city has done in the past for their capital borrowings, and essentially gives the authority to either the city manager or finance director to sign off on the bond sale whenever we're ready and timing is optimal to get into the marketplace. So over the next really month here, we're going to be putting together the official statement, which I've probably told you this in the past, but you can think of that as like the stock prospectus for the bond offering. It contains all the financial information about the city that a potential purchaser would want to know. You know, one of the things I want to highlight is, you know, kudos to the city over the last several years to continuing to improve your financial position. The general fund continues to improve from a reserve standpoint. The utilities are doing much better. And so, you know, it's making it easier to be able to get into the market and get as lower interest rates that we've been receiving over the last several years. So continue the good work there. So beginning of April, that's when we would anticipate getting into the marketplace once we're ready. And then ultimately the goal here would be to get the city funds by May 2nd of 2022. So that on that particular day, you're able to start paying invoices for all those construction projects related to 2022. So the estimated size, $2,305,000. This is a general obligation promissory note to fund the 2022 capital improvement projects. This is the city-supported projects alone. As Greg said, there's some other TID-related projects that may be done as a state trust fund loan for a variety of reasons, but this is just focused on the city-supported debt service. The first interest payment will be next year, April 1 of 2023. It'll be callable April 1, 2029. Or any date thereafter. It is a 10-year financing. So this is very consistent with what the city has done in the past. And the estimated interest rate at 2.75% for the 10-year financing. The max parameter interest rate not to exceed would be 3.25%. The goal would be to hopefully come in much lower than that, as we have done in the past. Looking at page 4 of this, a lot of numbers on this page. I won't go through this in detail. Left side of the page, that's the existing debt service on an annual basis for the city. The middle of the page is the issue we're talking about tonight. And the right side of the page is what the debt service for the city may look like after this borrowing. We also do a lot of long-term planning with Greg and Dave, looking at future projects. Is the city going to be potentially borrowing, annually for capital related projects? Because, everything needs to continue to improve. The investments continue to be made. So we just highlight in there that this plan also assumes about a $2 million borrowing every year thereafter. So we're thinking through all those different dynamics as well as when we're putting together the plan. And then the last page, this is more of a visual for council, but when you look at this, what's nice to show here is that the black bars in the bar chart there, that's the existing debt service for the city. The red is this 2022 issue that we're talking about tonight, and the blue is those future annual $2 million borrowings thereafter every year. What it shows is that the gray bars there is what's available to the city even after these borrowings. So the city will still have approximately 40% of your available borrowing capacity for unexpected expenditures. So it really highlights that as you continue to grow and pay off debt, you can see that the capacity actually may increase over time. So it's pretty nice visual. And the city has a policy not to exceed 60% of your capacity, and you can see that basically you're fitting that criteria starting this year. So continue the good work. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Anyone on council have questions?
Just as a reminder, some of the major projects included in that 2.35 million for this year are the reconstruction of 17th Street. The street portion of that will be GL borrowing. The planned repaving of Zlatnik Drive up to Pierce Street. The balance, I think, of about $750,000 on the fire department aerial ladder truck. $250,000 as half of the city's $500,000 commitment for Central Park West. as well as some other projects. But those are some of the biggies, the balance on the fire truck, this year's street work, some park work.
Okay. All right, that gives us a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $2,305,000 in general obligation promissory notes. The recommended action here is a motion to waive reading and adopt the resolution as recommended by the Personnel and Finance Committee. Also notated in page 8 of your packets, which is pretty lengthy. Looking for a motion on this. Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tracy. Any council discussion on this? We pretty much approved the capital projects when we did budget. Now we're authorizing us to borrow that money at this time. So it's something that we already covered, but now it's another step where we just actually authorize the actual borrowing of it and what parameters for the percentage that we're going to pay on that borrowing, which is notated in the handout that Greg handed out just earlier. No questions? Perfect. Roll call vote, Jamie.
Tracy Coach. Aye. Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulunis.
Aye.
Larry Thomas.
Aye.
Adam Wesky.
Aye.
Jeff Delkey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go.
I've a mercifully brief city manager's report tonight. Great shot there of our South Breakwater Trail out to the pier on Lake Michigan on a sunny day with the sewer sludge buildings in the background. Winter parking ban, by way of update, we've had an unusual winter. The ban has been enforced only 6 of 97 days since December 1, and it ends on March 15. So let's hope we see fewer snowplows and more of those crocuses pushing through. But this hasn't been a typical winter, but showing flexibility on the parking ban has made a lot of sense. And I know we've had a lot of positive feedback from citizens.
And thank you.
Upcoming city council candidate forums, I would just note for your information and the public's information, the Two Rivers Business Association Council Candidate Forum this week, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers at City Hall, recorded and live streamed on the city's website and Facebook, broadcast on Spectrum Channel 993. Also, the Manitowoc County Constitutional Caucus Council Candidate Forum, Sunday, March 20, 1 p.m. at the Lighthouse Inn. Staffing updates, you met a new department head and a new city electrician tonight. Congratulated a newly promoted lieutenant. We are also, last week, interviewed 4 candidates for senior center supervisor, are doing follow-up on those. Applications for Parks and Rec Director are being reviewed. The soft deadline to be assured consideration was last week, Friday. Police department interviews were held today for patrol officers. We today closed applications for water plant operator and are still advertising for water foreman. Some of those water positions we mentioned earlier. You know, it occurs to me too that this, since Friday is Terry Voster's last day as our Parks and Rec Director, before leaving us for Kakana, Terry, did want to thank you for your service to the community and wish you and your family all the best in your new job and in your new community. Thank you. Also, absentee ballots for folks that want to vote in the April 5th election can be requested online at myvote.wi.gov, or you can contact the city clerk's office directly or by mail with an acceptable photo ID. And Jamie, our city clerk, is the local expert on election administration, voter registration. So feel free to reach out to her if you have any questions about voter registration or voting in the April 5 election. Want to share also that the Two Rivers Water and Light is offering energy industry and general education $500 scholarships, one for a student going to college in a general education program, one for the energy industry. Those applications for those scholarships are due by April 1st. And you can go to trwaterandlight.com for more information, including a copy of the application and the guidelines. The student, parent, or legal guardian must be a customer of Two Rivers Water and Light, giving back a little bit to the community. If you've driven by there lately, this is a rerun of something I've mentioned in past reports, but it's a big project. Work is continuing on the 20th Street Stormwater Pond. That pond has stayed amazingly dry for as deep as it is and as close to the river as it is. They began last week, I believe it was, hauling clay for the clay liner that goes in the pond. You could tell because the streets were pretty well tracked up in the area. Again, that map shows that this pond will treat a drainage area of almost 40 acres. Much of the area between 17th and 22nd Streets, from Washington Street over to the East Twin River, as well as the north half of, including the north half of the former Hamilton property. One real plus of this pond, in addition to helping meet some of our requirements for reducing suspended solids discharged to our waterways, is it will help with stormwater management for any redevelopment projects within that 40-acre area. So that's well underway. And there are also some discussions underway with a developer interested in the balance of that former Eggers East site. Just wanted to remind you, as far as upcoming events, there is a St. Patty's Day to go fundraiser over at the Senior Center, where you can go with brat patties, pork patties, chicken breasts, or breaded whitefish. And also, as far as upcoming events, Main Street and TRBA are presenting a seminar on do-it-yourself guide to effective marketing for local businesses. And that's over in the Community House in the Behringer Room on the 29th of March. So both of those organizations working together to help local businesses with kind of some bootstrap marketing for their businesses. Other than that, for special events and activities, don't forget explore tworivers.com. And that is my report for the evening, Mr. President.
Anything on legislative?
Not a whole lot. They're wrapping up the legislative session, so there's some floor action happening probably right now. Sounds like the requirements that we're going to mandate certain zoning provisions for workforce housing have not gotten traction and aren't going to pass. I know the league still has some concerns about the legislation about charging stations for electric vehicles and whether municipalities will be able to sponsor electric vehicle charging stations. That would be prohibited with one of the amendments that has been added on to that bill, which was meant to be enabling legislation. And I believe the added Medicare or Medicaid reimbursements for ambulance services has passed and is on its way to the governor's desk for signature. So that should be good news for our ambulance service, to the extent serve folks that are on Medicaid and we have to take assignment or take payment in full, as it were, from whatever Medicaid pays. That's all I had on that.
Okay, thank you. All right, going on to number 10, which is the consent agenda. Under A, we have a presentation of minutes, which is the regular city council meeting for February 1st, 2022, and the work session of February 28th, 2022. Recommended action is a motion to waive reading and adopt the minutes. Under B, meetings of minutes, we have 3. The recommended action there is a motion to receive and file. Under C, applications and petitions, we have a new application for a Class A beer and Class A liquor license for One Guide Inc., 2300 Forest Avenue, Two Rivers, doing business as Teats Piggly Wiggly for the period of April 3rd, 2022 to June 30th, 2022. We also have a new application for cigarette and tobacco products retail license for One Guide Incorporated, 2300 Forest Avenue, Two Rivers, doing business as Teats Piggly Wiggly for the period of April 3rd, 2022 to June 30th, 2022. The recommended action there is a motion to approve the applications and authorize issuance of the licenses. And under D, we have a summary of verified bills for the month of February 2022 for $7,090,981.17. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. The recommended action for the consent agenda is a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jeff, and second by Bill. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that brings us to 11 and city council formal items. Under A, we have a consideration of pre-annex and power of attorney agreement with Brady Denoyer relative to property located at 2916 State Highway 310 in the town of Two Rivers. The recommended action is a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement on behalf of the city, page 75 in your packet, and then I will go to Greg on that.
You have a slightly revised version of the agreement that was handed out to you tonight. That's pre-annexation and power of attorney agreement. I'll highlight the changes in that, which are pretty pro forma. This would be the second case of a property like this where, understand, the city has water and sewer all the way along State Highway 310 out to the Woodland Industrial Park. Much of that area lies within the town of Two Rivers. The city limits of the city run south of 310 and then come back to the north when you get out to the industrial park. In this instance, as in one other where we have an agreement like this, we have an individual in the town who would like to access city water and sewer service because the mains run right by their property. Typically, the city doesn't provide water or sewer services to anything other than city properties. I think there's some pretty good policy reasons for that. Cities often end up hemmed in by town development when they take away the, I'll call it the leverage, if you will, of making being part of the city a requirement for getting water and sewer service. However, in this instance, Mr. Denoyer has indicated a willingness to enter into this pre-annexation agreement, which provides, number one, he would pay the inflation-adjusted equivalent of what the assessment would have been for putting those water and sewer mains across the frontage of his property. And that's identified in Exhibit B as $23,077.20. That would have to be paid up front before connection could be made to the utilities. He also would be responsible for the normal connection charges, tapping in the water and sewer mains and then installing his own services on private property back to his residence. The agreement also, and this is where the power of attorney part comes in, has Mr. Denoyer assigning to the city the right to sign and submit a petition for annexing the property into the city if and when it ever becomes contiguous to the city. Cities can't reach out or can't annex properties that don't touch their boundaries, that aren't contiguous. His property is not contiguous now. This agreement provides that if it ever becomes contiguous, the city can complete and sign a petition for annexation of this property on his behalf. Items 7 and 8, paragraphs 7 and 8, which when you looked at this, you probably thought, gee, those sound a little punitive. If Mr. Denoyer doesn't cooperate fully as it relates to annexation, there could be a liquidated damages penalty of $100 a day, or the services could be disconnected. That's only meant to cover the potential that, and city attorney can help me out on this, but basically the city has every right to file the annexation petition. There is a right under state statute for parties to oppose an annexation. And if a majority of the electors residing on a property or group of properties petition opposing an annexation, that kills it. So this, and a person can't by contract give up their rights or the rights of future residents on the property as electors, because that's your voting right. So this is in there so that if for some reason the city has petitioned in a valid manner under this agreement to annex the property, and there is action by electors residing on the property, and that could be Mr. Denoyer, it could be a rental tenant that precludes the annexation, then the provisions of 7 and 8 would apply. I don't expect they will apply. I did send this out to him over the weekend and highlighted 7 and 8, which had been added. He indicated those terms are acceptable to him. As for what you've got in front of you, the only changes are adding the name of Mrs. Denoyer on the agreement because she is the joint owner of the property. And also we revised the Exhibit A legal description based on getting a copy of the deed. The earlier description I think was right, but it was from county tax records. And it was, at least to me, to all of us, a more plain English, proper legal description that appeared in the deed. So, oh, and Mr. Denoyer pointed out his name has a capital N in it, and the earlier version had a. So those are the changes. Correction on the name spelling, adding the spouse, and modified legal description. And Mr. Bird.
Just wanted to say we did add the spouse as a signatory, but we should include her as one of the parties to the agreement in the introductory paragraph. We missed that, so we should insert her as a
Good
party
catch.
with
Thank you.
Mr. Denoyer.
Like I say, we have one other like this. It's kind of the best of both worlds. We gain a customer, that person's able to have city water and sewer service. We don't end up with someone out in the town though who, absent an agreement like this, might very well not want to come into the city, because that's often the deciding factor when someone has the ability to annex. Can I get city water and sewer services?
Okay, looking for a motion on this. Do I have a motion?
Also motion.
Thank you, Larry. Jeff?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? I should have asked, does your motion include to put in paragraph 1 to also include Mrs. Denoyer as described by the city attorney? Larry?
I'll restate it. Move the motion with the addition of Mrs.
Jeff? Good.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion? All right, seeing none, we will do a roll call vote. Jamie?
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimmy-Lunas,
Aye.
Larry Thomas,
Aye.
Adam Wahusky,
Aye.
Jeff Dalkey,
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, guys. B, award of bids for 17th Street reconstruction, street and all underground utilities. The recommended action here is a motion to award the contract to Josart Brothers Incorporated of De Pere on its low bid in the amount of $1,412,134 for base bid and supplemental items. Greg, any background? Also, what is this page? I lost, yes, you're right, 81.
Page 81 is the memo from the engineers at Town and Country in the bid tab. The good news on this, because contractors, we understand, are awfully busy out there. You'll note we got a total of 8 bids on this project. Advance, which got one of our contracts last year, was sort of the outlier at the high end by 70,000. The next 7 bids were within 7% of each other. So we got some good tight pricing. Josart Brothers in their low total bid, $1,412,134, is only $24,000 lower than Vinton Construction, the second low bid. This project is being funded from a variety of sources. General obligation borrowing is authorized by the council earlier tonight for the street work, funding from our stormwater utility, basically cash outlay for the storm sewer work. The water laterals on the private side, 50% from, water laterals on the private side, we anticipate getting the $2,500 in principal forgiveness again this year from DNR through the Safe Drinking Water Program. They haven't finalized those awards yet, but we're told the funding is there and we should expect those to be available. If it's not, I'll be back at you talking about ARPA dollars, the American Recovery Plan, but we fully expect to be able to tap into the principal forgiveness through DNR, again, with $2,500 grants for each homeowner for their private side water lateral. When it comes to that portion of the water lateral under the street or within the right-of-way, the public side lateral, we anticipate paying for half of that out of city ARPA American Rescue Plan Act dollars, the other half from the county match that County Executive Ziegelbauer and the county board have approved. So that would be fully funded, not from debt, but from ARPA dollars. Then the water main work and some of the sewer main work would be clean water and safe drinking water fund borrowing. It's all accounted for and it's all within budget. So with that, we're happy to recommend approval.
We should highlight that is a really good deal that the county is offering us with their ARPA money.
It is. It is.
and-
You know,
and-
we've got still over 2,000 lead service laterals. They aren't cheap. Even with the county assistance, we might be able to eliminate 400, but that's 400 to the better.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, looking for a motion on this.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second? Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Jeff Dalkey,
Aye.
Adam Huskey,
Aye.
Larry Thomas,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinis,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Going on to C, award of bids for water and sewer lateral replacement, 50 scattered locations. The recommended action is a motion to award the contract to Essential Sewer and Water of Manitowoc based on its low bid amounts of $456,225 for the base bid and $250,075 for the supplemental bid. This is page 85 in your packet, and we'll go back to Greg for this.
Again, these bids weren't as tightly banded. You see, if you look at the total bid, Essential was low, as the president just mentioned, at 706,300. The high bid from Advance, 992,925. Mammoth, local firm that has been successful in bidding a lot of our lateral work, 832,000, second low. Again, this is at 50 scattered locations. Jim McDonald, yeah, help me out on this. The base bid is essentially the water services. Supplemental is sanitary laterals to the extent they have to. That's right. The sewer laterals are simply a charge to the private property in addition. Okay. So this is, 50. And again, we anticipate the portion under the street, the public side of the water laterals will be funded 50-50 between city and county ARPA dollars. And the private portion is the homeowner responsibility, but we should be able to apply $2,500 in principal forgiveness through safe drinking water. If at the same time an inspection shows the sanitary lateral is defective and needs to be replaced, that's homeowner responsibility. The city has been giving the homeowners a year grace period. So if the lateral's replaced this year, the bill is due November of 23. That has an expense to the sewer utility, but it's been that float, which last year was about $250,000. So again, we'd like to be doing as many lead lateral replacements as we can in tandem with our street projects, but that's not going to get them all done. Can't rebuild the streets that fast. Jim, these are mostly on concrete streets?
We're trying to.
So the restoration costs, which are payable out of the financing, will largely be done by our crews. They've been doing the concrete work.
All right, looking for a motion on this.
I'll make that motion.
Jeff, thank you, Larry. Any council discussion? See none, roll call, Jamie.
Bonnie Shimulinis, Larry Thomas,
Aye.
Adam Huskey,
Aye.
Jeff Dalkey,
Aye.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Moving on to D. This is a resolution adjusting the water utility property tax equivalent payment. You can look to page 91 in your packet. The recommended action is a motion to waive and adopt the resolution. Greg, any background?
Yeah, this is likewise follow-up on action taken when the 2022 budget was adopted. That budget included on the revenue side an increase in the water utility property tax equivalent payment from $145,426 up to $245,246. And that was discussed at Personnel and Finance and when Personnel and Finance met jointly with the Utilities Committee. By way of background, Public Service Commission regulations in Wisconsin allow municipal utilities to make a property tax equivalent payment to the municipality to support general fund operations. It's based on the sum of the city and school district levy rates or tax rates, don't ask me why, but it is, and multiplied essentially by the value of the asset base of the utility. In Two Rivers, because going back a number of years to 2003, we have kept this frozen in light of, at that time, a pending large water rate increase and because of the condition of the utility. The utility has improved its financial condition in recent years. So with this year's budget, we're recommending an increase, not to the full amount that would be allowed under PSC regs, which I dare say is what most cities charge. That's $337,714 based on the current value of the plant and service, but up by 100,000 to 246. Our auditors advised that this should be documented with a council resolution in addition to having been included in the budget that you adopted. So any deeper questions than that, Dave Buss, our finance director, can answer.
Okay, looking for a motion on this.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tracy. Second by Bill. Council questions? Any discussion? Bill?
This isn't gonna increase any of the water rates or sewer rates, is it?
Wouldn't affect sewer rates at all because sewer has its own property tax equivalent payment. Shouldn't increase water rates because, again, we've seen for the last 2 years an improved cash situation with net revenues exceeding expenses. We're projecting positive cash for the coming year, even with this additional outlay by the utility. Fact is, we've been deliberately shorting the payment the utility makes to the general fund for going on 20 years. The water utility. And it would be at the council's discretion if it wanted to reduce it again in the future. I wouldn't recommend it, but this amount would be the new frozen maximum amount until such time as the council would take further action.
Any other discussion? Does that lay it out pretty good? Yeah. Okay. All right, roll call vote.
Tracy Coach. Aye. Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulunis.
Aye.
Larry Thomas.
Aye.
Adam Husky.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to E, consideration of adoption of an updated personnel policy. Recommended action, a motion to approve the updated personnel policy and direct the city clerk to distribute to employees as recommended by the Personnel and Finance Committee. I think we have a write-up in our packets, starting with page 92 and rolling through 93, correct? Background on that.
This has been a really huge lift, and I thank her for it, by our city clerk and human resources director, Jamie Jackson. Our personnel manual was badly outdated. We had a patchwork of amendments that had been approved by the council over the years. It was just what was impossible to find the entire document in one place. There were different versions out there. We also had, in many respects, continued practices that date back to pre-Act 10 with our labor contracts among certain of our employee groups. So this document, as prepared by the clerk, human resources director, and recommended for approval by the Personnel and Finance Committee, essentially codifies in one document the current practices of the city. It really doesn't change anything. It does put them all in one place. There's a slightly modified introduction per a request from Mr. Bittner at Finance and Personnel that there be reference to the annual goals and objectives adopted by council. We also make just a very basic reference to wanting to be supportive of employee training and provide for a work environment that is safe, supportive, and inclusive. We obviously need to expand on those aspects of our policy, and I expect we'll be doing that with some amendments. But at this point, this is meant to get us up to date, consistent, with a document that'll be readily accessible to all employees online and through our online payroll function, My Pay.
Okay, that document is in front of you. It is quite lengthy. Take the time to read it if you haven't already, or at least skim through it. And obviously, any further updates we can certainly consider should they come about in the
They
future.
would come through the committee and through council. Yeah.
All right, looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tracy. Second by Larry. Any council discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call.
Larry Thomas,
Aye.
Adam Huskey,
Aye.
Jeff Delkey,
Aye.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
You
Should
busy
add too,
tonight.
thanks to all the department heads who were involved in the review and a couple of work sessions with the city clerk and myself where we hashed through our understanding of things that are in the manual.
On to F, the consideration of adoption of a new non-union full-time and part-time pay scale. Page 90, or not 93, page 166 in our packet. The recommended action is a motion to approve the non-union full-time and part-time pay scales as presented and implemented effective with the next pay period as recommended by Personnel and Finance Committee. Again, this is another one that took a lot of work and a lot of good effort here. So Greg, background on that, please.
Yes, as the committee was told, both the finance director and I were afraid of this task, but Jamie plowed into it upon her arrival here. And again, we had I want to say 90 plus pay grades in the full-time ranks because of what had been our non-union pay scales and our various union contract pay scales, which we, even though we didn't have contracts anymore, carried forward to show the rates of pay for different city positions. That made a pretty cumbersome, complex set of documents. Those grades are now boiled down into 30 full-time pay grades throughout the city workforce. So 117 employees, that's not too bad, especially given the variety of jobs in the workforce. And I don't recall the numbers, but similarly, she was able to boil down and unify the part-time pay scale. Looking at where people are currently, there are some adjustments necessary to get people right on a specific step within the pay grades. Generally, it's 8, 10, or 12 cents an hour as shown in the numbers on page 166 for full-timers. And it's 169 for part-timers. You can see in wages, that's grand total of about $5,000 across the whole city organization. Throw in employer share of FICA and Wisconsin retirement, and you're maybe at $7,000. But on an annual basis, out of payroll of probably probably about 15 million in all those departments. So we would recommend, and the finance committee concurred, that these changes, some of which could just be attributed to rounding errors as contracts were inflated by 2 or 3% a year, that the changes shown here to put these new wage scales into effect and put people spot on a step in the pay scale versus where they are now, that the recommendation is that that be approved effective with the next pay period following this meeting.
Looking for a motion on that. Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Thank you, Jeff. Any council discussion? All right, why not, Jamie? Roll call.
Adam Huskey,
Aye.
Jeff Delkey,
Aye.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulis,
Aye.
Larry Thomas.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, for information only.
Really just information on your upcoming meetings. I think you're all pretty much aware of that. The next regular meeting on March 21, and then the council work session on Monday, March 28, both at 6 p.m. I do want to ask if I've got 2 out of the 3 personnel and finance committee members here. Our last meeting, we didn't discuss a date, but whether you might be available to meet on Tuesday, the 15th at 6 p.m. And I realize you may not have the answer to that sitting here tonight. Primary purpose there would be to talk about possible development assistance for the former Eggers East property. We talked about that in closed session last meeting.
I will have to get back to you. I'll send you an email probably yet tonight, if I can do that.
The fallback date might be the following week, Wednesday, which is the 23rd.
Okay,
And I'll reach out to Mr. Bittner as well.
okay, thank you.
And with that, if I might, I really don't see the need for the closed session listed tonight. We're really not ready to talk about the Eggers East. And we will have the development agreement for 3000 Forest out in your packets next time. So unless somebody really wants to go into closed session, from a staff standpoint, we could pass on it tonight.
I don't think anyone really wants to. So I think we're good. So we'll skip 13, we'll skip 14 in the agenda, and we're going to go right to number 15, which is a motion to dispense. We're going to adjourn. Do we have a motion
I
to
will
adjourn?
make that motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Do you have a second? Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you and good night.
These are for you. And
Jack,
one
too?
goes to Jack.
Okay.